All right, I think we're ready to get started. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Haley Blake. I'm the manager of community engagement here at the Wilson Museum, where our mission is to cultivate and encourage human connection across place, time, and cultures. We would like to welcome you all, both in person and virtually, to today's program at the museum, located in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation and their Wabanaki relations. We encourage those of you who are joining us virtually or watching our program recording to learn more about the Indigenous people who call where you live home. In the back of the room and on our website, there's information about becoming a member, donating to support our educational work, and signing up for our e-newsletter. If you are interested in renting this beautiful space for a meeting or special event, you can find information also on our website, or you can ask a staff member. All right, and now without further ado, I'll hand it over to our wonderful presenters for this evening to share their knowledge about what is happening with the right whales right now.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Aurora Simmons and I would like to welcome you to our Calvineers presentation. As many of you know, we are a group of 7th and 8th graders with a few 9th graders still with us that are trying to educate as many people as possible about the plight of the North Atlantic right whale. We are so incredibly fortunate to be led by Bill McQueenie and to be documented by Tom Willey. We are also fortunate to have as our mentor senior scientist Amy Knowlton from the New England Aquarium. On the surface, it looks like Calvineers spent all of our time learning about North Atlantic right whales, or engaged in educational outreach. And although that is definitely true, what we gain from this experience is so much bigger than that. Mr. McQueenie teaches us to not just learn from scientists, but to become one, to ask questions. We learn that we're not just kids, but that when there is something that we feel strongly about, we can find ways to take action. We learn compassion for creatures that don't have a voice or representation. We learn how to be brave and how to practice public speaking because we have to be Calvin's voice. We learn about public policy and funding. We write lots of letters to government representatives. We learn about research and attend conferences where we get to meet and interact with the leading research scientists in the field. I will turn the show over to Luke Montanaro, who will introduce our latest PowerPoint presentation about the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale.
Welcome to the Calvineers presentation about endangered whales. We are the Calvineers and we run the Calvin Project. We are students from the Adams School in Castine, Maine. The Calvineers want you to help us save the whales again. We say again because large whales have been protected worldwide from hunting since the 1980s. But humans are accidentally killing whales every day at an alarming rate. You will soon see that there are many whales endangered all over the world. We will tell you about our own local whale that swims right here in the Gulf of Maine. It is the most critically endangered large whale in the whole world, the North Atlantic right whale. The Calvineers first started in 2004. Every 2 years, there is a new generation of Calvineers working on helping to save the North Atlantic right whale from going extinct. So I'm a 10th generation Calvineer. The generations of Calvineers before me have given presentations to hundreds of thousands of people, from Maine to Massachusetts, from Quebec City to Tampa Bay, from the old whaling port of New Bedford to Halifax, Nova Scotia, from the New England Aquarium to the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, and from the New York City to Barcelona, Spain. I hope you enjoy learning about endangered whales and the science being done to help save them from extinction. Let's count down the top 11 endangered whales around the world. The 11th most endangered whale is the narwhal. It's found in cold Arctic waters near Canada, Greenland, Russia, and Norway. Number 10 is the beluga whale. It is also an Arctic resident and is found in North America, Russia, and Greenland. Belugas are an endangered species in Alaska. Humpback whales are found in all oceans of the world. They are the 9th most endangered whale and are at risk because of entanglements and vessel strikes. Bowhead whales are number 8. They live in all Arctic regions. Although they have a large population, many subpopulations are listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. Fin whales are the 7th most endangered species of whales. Fin whales are the second largest whale. They live in all the major oceans and range from the polar regions to tropical areas. The biggest threat for fin whales is vessel strike. It is not unusual for a ship to enter port with a fin whale draped across its bow.
Sperm whales are found in deep water oceans. They are the sixth most endangered whale. They are listed endangered in the United States. Vessel strikes and entanglements are threats. They also can eat floating plastic debris and have died from doing that. The gray whale is the fifth most endangered whale. It lives along the west coast of North America. There are a few that live near Japan. There used to be gray whales in the Atlantic Ocean, and they were considered extinct up until recently. Just this spring, a single gray whale was seen off the east coast of the United States. The blue whale is the largest creature that have ever lived on Earth. They used to grow up to 100 feet long, but present-day blue whales average about 80 to 90 feet long. Like the fin whales, they are often struck by ships. The blue whale is the fourth most endangered whale in the world. The number three most endangered whale is the sei whale. It lives all around the world except for polar regions. It is threatened by entanglements, vessel strikes, and noise pollution. The number two most endangered whale is the North Pacific right whale. Its population is estimated at less than 100 in the whole North Pacific Ocean. Because they are found in such a large area, vessel strikes and entanglements are a minor threat to them. So, what is the most endangered whale in the world?
What is it? There are less than 350 North Atlantic right whales left in the world. There are about 70 breeding female right whales left. The biggest threat for right whales is entanglement. Most right whales have been entangled 2 or more times, with 25% of right whales being entangled in fishing gear each year. The United States listed the North Atlantic right whale an endangered species in 1970. Right whales are protected in Canada under the Species at Risk Act. Hundreds of scientists and organizations are trying to help the world's most endangered large whale recover and not go extinct. But accidental deaths have decreased the number of right whales by 25% in the last decade. Looking at this graph, you can see that the future for right whales does not look good. The easiest way to identify right whales is by the callosity patterns on their head. Callosities are hardened patches of skins, like a callus, that small crab-like crustaceans live on. The crustaceans, called cyamids, are white and show up clearly on the right whale's black skin. Each callosity pattern is unique to each whale, like a fingerprint is for a human. You can see how different these two whales look from each other. The whale on the left has a broken callosity pattern, while the one on the right has a continuous callosity pattern from its blowhole to its bonnet. Each individual whale can be identified by scientists with its unique callosity pattern. Remember that right whales are mammals. Like us, they breathe air and give live birth. They are warm-blooded and likely quite intelligent. The pectoral fins help the whale steer, balance, and slow down. Flukes, sometimes known as tails, provide the whale with power and propulsion in the water, moving it forward. The peduncle is where the flukes meet the rest of the body. The peduncle is very powerful and helps the whale move. The blowholes are the nostrils of the whale. The blow from a right whale has a V shape on the surface of the water. Baleen on the whale filters their small prey from the water. Right whales and bowhead whales are the only whales with no dorsal fin.
We will share the story of Calvin the right whale with you because Calvin has seen it all. Scientists have cited Calvin more than 300 times in the last 32 years. Calvin is 32 years old this year. Born in 1992, Calvin has experienced all the joys and all the troubles of being a right whale. Calvin was first sighted on August 7, 1992, in the Bay of Fundy with her mother Delilah. In 1992, Delilah, Calvin's mother, was nursing Calvin in the Bay of Fundy. Delilah was hit by a ship and died. Baby Calvin witnessed her mother's death and was left to fend for herself before the end of the normal nursing process. After Calvin's mother died, scientists wonder if Calvin would survive. But a year later, Calvin showed up in the Bay of Fundy, defying the odds and looking quite healthy.
Calves grow fast. 6 months after their birth, right whale calves double their length from 15 feet long to almost 30 feet long. Calvin must have learned how to eat by herself without her mother's help. Just how Calvin learned to feed herself is a mystery, but somehow she managed. We'll never know. Right whales eat copepods. Copepods are a type of zooplankton the size of a grain of rice. Zooplankton are the biggest source of protein in the oceans. Right whales need up to 1 million calories a day to maintain body functions. Right whales filter feed through the baleen. The baleen catches copepods. When the large tongue pushes the water out of the whale's mouth, then the whale swallows the copepods.
For 6 years, Calvin lived and socialized with her right whale family. One activity she participated in is sagging. SAG stands for Surface Active Group, which is believed to be a social bonding activity. Here is a video of a social active group of right whales taken from the New England Aquarium's research vessel, the Nereid.
Is my sound turned off?
Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess we'll do this without the sound. This is the Bay of Fundy. That's the aquarium's research vessel. What you can't hear is what a ruckus is making right now. It's like fun.
All right, we're there.
Right around there, somewhere in the teens, maybe 20.
Wart is another right whale that has an amazing family. We know that Wart is about 50 years old, and right whales can live to be 80 years old or older. Wart has not been seen since 2014. She was presumed dead after 6 years of not being seen. Wart was first sighted in 1981 in the Bay of Fundy. A year later, she had her first calf, Salmon. Her seventh calf, called Pilgrim, was born in 2013. This is a picture of Wart's family tree. You can see just how one whale can increase the right whale population by quite a bit. All of Wart's 7 calves have been entangled or in a shipwreck. One of the calves is presumed dead. Wart has 14 grandcalves and 6 great-grandcalves. Wart has 30 descendants now. 5 of Wart's descendants are either dead or presumed dead. 23 of the 30 descendants have been involved in entanglement or a boat strike. Wart's family had over 70 human-caused injuries. That is an average of 3 injuries per whale. Wart has not been seen since 2014. She was last photographed with a severe entanglement through her mouth and baleen. She was presumed dead after 6 years of not being seen. She most likely died from that entanglement, since she has not reached her natural age limit.
Wait a minute. So, if you look closely here, you can see the lines coming out of what's mouth. Right. Okay, well,
86% of right whales alive today have entanglement scars. That means most right whales have been entangled at least once. More than 60% have been entangled twice. Some have been entangled 4 or 5 times, and Calvin has been entangled 6 times. After entanglement, some whales are never seen again. They just disappear. 11 years ago, this right whale was seen entangled, but it has never been sighted again. If the whale died, it was probably a slow and painful death over many years, over many months or even years. Calvin was first seen entangled in August of 2000. 7 months later, in March of 2001, in Cape Cod, the Provincetown Center for Coastal Studies attached a buoy with a satellite tag. You can see from this chart that Calvin traveled hundreds of miles during the 36 days she had the tag on. The buoy and tag were found in April, floating free. The buoy helped pull the gear off Calvin because she was seen gear free after that. But to this day, Calvin bears the scars of her entanglement. North Atlantic right whales migrate from their northern feeding grounds in the Gulf of Maine and Canada to the warm, shallow waters of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida's east coast. These waters are the only place that right whales are known to give birth and nurse their young. The migration to the south is usually made by females and juveniles. Older male right whales tend to stay in and around the Gulf of Maine during the winter months. Although we have a general idea where right whales are during the year, we can never truly know where the individual right whale will show up next. In addition to their vertical movements through the water column, most whale species migrate seasonally from nutrient-rich feeding grounds to nutrient-poor breeding grounds to mate and give birth. The nutrients whales consume in their feeding grounds are expelled as feces and urine, although along their migratory routes in and their breeding grounds. This stimulates phytoplankton blooms and increases carbon capture in photosynthesis. Baleen whales, like the blue-gray fin and right whale, embark on some of the longest migrations on the planet, up to 12,000 miles. These large whales transport nutrients across oceans and encourage phytoplankton blooms along their migration corridor. We have no idea of exactly where any one individual right whale would be. Looking at the migration maps, you would suspect that no right whales would be found in Maine or New Hampshire, but the right whales explore everywhere in between their favorite feeding grounds looking for food. Here are a few examples of where right whales have been sighted over the last 7 years in Maine. In 2018, one was sighted in York Beach. In 2019, another was sighted off Cape Neddick Lighthouse. And in 2020, a right whale was seen in Eastport that forced a large ship to alter its course and gave people on a cruise ship tied up in Eastport quite a show. In August of 2020, there was a right whale seen breaching in lower Blue Hill Bay off of Long Island near Frenchboro, Maine. In this video, you can see how close this young whale is to shore. This shows how close right whales can come to where thousands of lobster traps are marked and with a buoy and an end line.
so this video was taken on a pleasure boat, a sailboat. And again, we don't have sound, but there's the whale approaching. Little breach there. And just a little sail out of Blue Hill one day.
In the last few years, there have been more efforts to detect right whales in Maine waters, with anonymous gliders and acoustic buoys listening for right whales. NOAA and the New England Aquarium have also begun surveying the Maine coast with plane flight surveys that they rarely did in the past. The brown straight lines are plane surveying, and the squiggly blue lines are glider tracks. The red and green dots are definite sightings, and the yellow dots are possible sightings. In 2022, there was at least 6 right whales sighted next to Portland shipping lanes. In 2023, there was a mother and calf whale pair sighted inside the LMA1 closure to Maine fishermen. The first 3 months of surveying in 2024 show a great number of sightings in Maine fishing waters, and just outside them. These charts are from the website called Whale Map. Anyone can access the Whale Map site and see when and where right whales have been sighted.
That's too short for this.
You can move it down.
Nobody exploded. One of the main entangled right whales is most surely dead. This is a picture of Kingfisher's right pectoral fin entangled in Maine fishing gear in 2004 when he was only 1 year old. As Kingfisher grew, the rope sunk into his skin and blubber right to the bone. Kingfisher suffered with this gear on him for 11 years. He was last seen in 2015. Kingfisher was never seen again and is presumed dead. The solution to entanglement problem is not disentanglement, because very few whales are successfully disentangled. The solution is to get the lines out of the water. Maine can no longer deny that right whales are getting entangled in Maine fishing gear. In the summer 2022, 1-year-old right whale 5120 was first seen entangled in lobster gear. Attempts were made to disentangle the ropes around her peduncle, but they all failed. In January of 2024, 5120 washed up dead on the shore of Martha's Vineyard. The necropsy revealed that Maine lobster gear marked with a purple mark is probably the cause of death. The rope was embedded in the tail stalk for the whale for 17 months. While the young whale grew and the rope ate into her blubber and connective tissue right to the bone. Maine has to do a lot more to lower the risk of right whales and all large whales getting entangled in their fishing gear. In the last decade, more than 700 large whales have been entangled on the east coast of the United States and Canada. As Kingfisher's case in the right whale 5120's case points out, many whales suffer for years as their entanglements eat into their blubber, muscles, and bones, causing infections. It's not only important to change the ways we fish for right whales, but it's just as important for all large whales so they do not suffer a painful death. In 2021, there were 2 minke whales entangled in Maine lobster gear. The minke whale on the left died near Southport, Maine. The minke whale on the right was last seen entangled off Mohegan Island in Maine. The humpback whale named Spinnaker was entangled multiple times in Maine's fishing gear. In 2015, Spinnaker was found dead on the shores of Acadia National Park, where he was necropsied. We are morally and legally responsible under the Marine Mammal Protection Act to stop chronic entanglements
and deaths of all whales in Maine. Given that right whales do swim in waters that Maine lobstermen fish in, and that there have been over 1,850 documented right whale entanglements, some of those entanglements must be happening in Maine gear. In the last 4 years, Maine lobster gear has more documented large whale entanglements than any other fishing fleet on the east coast of the United States. Maine should not be denying the fact that right whales and many other whales could be entangled in their gear. Instead, they should work on new methods to weaken and remove end lines from waters everywhere, like other states and Canada are doing.
There are 2 ways to lower the risk of entanglement for all large whales. Fishermen can use weaker ropes or no ropes at all. New England Aquarium senior scientist Amy Knowlton found evidence that large whales cannot break free of ropes that are stronger than 1,700 pounds breaking strength. For the last 20 years, lobster fishermen have used ropes with 3,000 to 4,000 pounds breaking strength, or even stronger. No wonder whales are being entangled more and more every year. Serious entanglements of right whales have dramatically increased in the last 20 years. One answer is to make ropes weak again. Weak enough for whales to break free of them. Even young whales can get out of 1,700 pound breaking strength ropes. If fishermen were to fish with weaker ropes, many whales would be able to break free and not get seriously entangled. NOAA has recently required all fisheries to use weak ropes or weak links in their end lines. The Massachusetts South Shore lobster fishermen have developed a way to make their ropes break at 1,700 pounds. The fishermen have been using these sleeved ropes for 7 years with 2 major results. The ropes work in their haulers, and the ropes do not break while hauling gear. All lobstermen in the United States are now required to use the 1,700 pound sleeves or other ropes that break at 1,700 pounds. This prevents serious entanglements to right whales and all large whales, but does not completely eliminate the risk of entanglement.
The best way to stop whales from getting entangled is to remove the lines that go from the surface buoy to the pot on the bottom. A new method called ropeless fishing eliminates the ropes going to the surface buoy. Ropeless works by having a lobster boat send a signal to a trap on the bottom. The signal then releases a float that brings the end line rope up to the surface. Lobstermen are among the best fishermen in the world, and many of them are successfully testing this new method of fishing. This year, the Maine DMR is allowing Maine fishermen to use and test the ropeless systems free of charge. The biggest threat of wind farms to whales is probably the fast boats used to build and maintain the towers. Vessels servicing the wind tower should go no faster than 10 knots unless they are certain there are no right whales around. So far, research shows that the noise from a wind farm will not kill whales. There's no evidence that any whale has been killed by sound from a wind farm or the noise of building a wind farm, but it could mess up their communications. There is concern regarding the impact of sound from turbines on right whales. Right whales make low-frequency grunts to communicate. Wind turbines can make low-level sounds as loud as a minor earthquake. There's a possibility that the noise pollution that the turbines cause could disrupt the whale's communication. Science has shown us that any noise in the ocean raises the stress levels in right whales.
Right whales play an extremely important role helping to feed many other animals and keeping the food chain stable by fertilizing the phytoplankton at the base of the ocean food web. Right whales sequester carbon dioxide for hundreds of years, fertilize the base of the ocean food chain, and transfer nutrients throughout the ocean. Large whales help sustain billion-dollar fishing industries worldwide, including the lobster fishery. The whale watch business has also grown to a $2 billion industry. The whale pump is a cycle where whales feed at the bottom of the ocean, and when they come to the surface, they poop, releasing iron, nitrogen, and phosphate nutrients. Phytoplankton use these nutrients to grow. Because they are plants, they use carbon dioxide and make oxygen while growing. Animal plankton or zooplankton then eat the phytoplankton, and then the whales can eat the zooplankton and bring the nutrients back to the phytoplankton again when they poop.
The natural death of a large whale is a significant event for the ocean's deep sea environment. First, large whales contain up to 30 tons of carbon. That is carbon that cannot enter the atmosphere as CO2 and contribute to global warming. Second, the whale carcass provides food for hundreds of organisms that live at the bottom of the ocean. These organisms continue to keep the carbon away from the atmosphere. Third, the whale fall lasts for many years, contributing to a robust deep ocean environment. This is the image of a gray whale sunk on purpose in 1998. The picture was taken 6 years later when invertebrates and bacteria have taken over the carcass. Before whaling began, there were 4 million whales in the oceans. Whales are dying naturally and falling to the bottom of the ocean every day. Now there are about 1.5 million whales in their oceans. These whales are smaller than their ancestors because they are not growing to an old age. Most whales today die from entanglements, ship strikes, and climate change well before their natural age of death. There is some good news. You might have caught on that Calvin is a female. She was named after the comic Calvin and Hobbes because she was such a feisty whale learning how to survive on her own. But when Calvin was started and tested for genetics, scientists found out that she was a female. This is a 2020 picture of Calvin's powerful flukes with their 4th baby whale behind them. Calvin could eventually have a family as big as Wart's. But there is also some bad news about Calvin. Calvin was seen in the Gulf of St. Lawrence in 2021 looking quite healthy. Then, in the spring of 2022, Calvin was sighted with serious wounds on her peduncle. She must have been entangled in some very strong rope that caused these wounds when she struggled to get free. Calvin was last seen on June 13, 2022, almost 2 years ago. We can only hope that Calvin will survive this injury.
There are ways everybody can help whales. Now that you know the North Atlantic right whale story, share it with others. The more people understand the plight of the North Atlantic right whales, the more likely it will be for things to change. Let your local, state, and federal representatives know you support measures to help right whales and at the same time keep fishermen fishing. Buy local. Everything you buy, from cars to vegetables, does not have to be shipped if they are locally made and bought, and less shipping could mean less ship strikes. Watch your carbon footprint and conserve, because global warming certainly causes problems for right whales as well as most wildlife. Another way to help is by stop using plastic as much as you can. Many organisms die directly from eating plastic. Buy seafood that is responsibly caught, especially lobster. Most aquariums have lists of acceptable seafoods that lowers by catch to a minimum. Soon, you may be able to buy a whale-safe lobster that was caught with ropeless fishing gear. You can also encourage fishermen to use 1,700-pound rope and weak links. Help stop severe entanglements now. Support research and trials with ropeless and on-demand gear by Maine fishermen. You can also join organizations like the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society and Oceana and the Humane Society. They all advocate specifically for right whales. You can also adopt a right whale at the New England Aquarium. The money goes towards small research efforts that are important but not supported otherwise. Whales are very gentle animals. The diver above is being approached by a southern right whale. Neither whale nor diver is afraid. We are speaking out because right whales and all whales are amazing beings. We want to find the balance between fishermen making a good living and right whales recovering. Saving right whales will help save all large whales. This is a picture of an upside-down mother right whale hugging her baby calf. Let's hope this scene will be repeated for centuries to come. Thank you for listening to our stories. Save the right whales again.
How many people actually know the Calvin song out of the Calvineers? Just curious.
I think there's words in your
I'm
thing,
here
right?
and I know you can fix
Come on up, Georgia, and help me. Okay. When I usually start it, it's too low, so you start.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Not too low.
Me the first time.
Too low? Okay. Hey,
Found another whale today on Nantucket's eastern shore. A mother of 6 children, they'd hope she'd have some more. There's only 400 in the world left alive. They call them the right whales, they migrate to survive. She's a right whale, living in the wrong time. One of the last survivors in a long line. Come on, Calvin, you can make it through. Come on, Calvin, we're counting on you. Bolo didn't make it the way they hoped she would. Not many can get pregnant, they knew that Bolo could. But Calvin's still out there, she had a calf in spite of strife. She's going back to Nova Scotia to start a new life. She's a right whale, living in the wrong time. One of the last survivors in the long line. Come on, Calvin, you can make it through. Yeah, come on, Calvin, we're counting on you. Pollution and predation decimate their pods. Between shipping lanes and fishing gear, can they beat the odds? Corporate greed and human need roll Mother Nature's dice. And whales like Calvin are the ones who pay the price. She's a right whale, living in the wrong time. One of the last survivors in a long line. Come on, Calvin, you can make it through. Make it through. Come on, Calvin, we're counting on you.
one more time.
She's a right whale, living in the wrong time. One of the last survivors in a long line. Come on, Calvin, you can make it through. Make it through. Come on, Calvin, we're counting on you. And she's counting on us, and she's counting on you. Good job. Thanks.
Okay, so there must be some questions or comments or whatever. Whoa, okay. Anything strike you about the presentation, any facts or anything?
I have a question. I thought, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. So I caught this at the beginning of the presentation and then you mentioned it again at the end. And I'm not sure if you would know the answer, but with blue whales, they used to grow to 100 feet and now you're saying it's more like 80 and 90. Is that because of their reduced lifespan? Or is that some other?
Does
You may
anyone
not
want to answer that?
You can
answer that.
Yeah, you can answer.
Jen.
Yeah.
You seem to think I know the answer.
I don't actually.
Yes, it is because of the reduced lifespan.
I mean, I think there's also several issues with food and general stress. Sorry, someone else want to say something? No.
So let me say that we have an expert in the audience with us, Amy Knowlton. We put you on the spot, Amy.
Here.
Well, I could speak to right whales. I don't know why blue whales are shorter, but for right whales, we've documented they've become stunted partly from entanglements. We learned that if a right whale gets entangled when it's growing and has a severe entanglement, or its mother gets a severe entanglement when it's nursing, that whale will not grow to the full length that its cohorts do. So it's been well documented, and so right whales are just not growing as long either. So.
Yeah, can I add on to that, Amy? When they get entangled, they can't like do things that they like usually can, like surface feed and eat and like gain that nutrients to like grow larger. So that's just like a little bit more like about why when they get entangled, that's why they can't be as big as they usually are.
You mentioned the weaker ropes, the 1,700-pound ropes. Is that a requirement in other New England waters and Maine is just behind the times? Or is there a plan, is it a law right now?
It is a law right now,
It
yeah.
They're at least required to put in the weak links. So generally, there should be more of those per distance than there are. Because while any is better than none, more is always more likely to save a whale. But
So what Acadia is talking about, we only kind of touched on this a little bit. So these are the weak links here. You can see this little place here. This is where the rope has been cut, the two pieces, and that's the weak link. You pull hard on that. I can't pull hard on that, but 1,700 pounds, it will break right there. It is a law that everybody has to use weak links, but the states are interpreting that law differently. So where they were developed in Massachusetts, they put them every 60 feet. Up here in Maine, they only put 1 or 2 in the end line. And the idea about every 60 feet was, well, the whale wraps around, it'll break, 60 feet will wrap around the whale once. But if you have 200 or 300 feet, who knows where it's going to break, and you have a lot of line. So we're hoping that Maine will change their ideas and get up with the rest of the crowd and do it every 60 feet. You know that, right? Okay.
Well, I can shout it too. What has been some of the hardest sort of talking points? I know that there's a difficulty in communication of ideas between fishermen and scientists. What have been some of those sticking points, and what do you think? Like, are there ways of getting our point across? Because we've been talking about this for a long time, and I feel like you have this beautiful evidence, and it's so frustrating that it's not being accepted.
So Luke and I had a conversation with someone today talking about right whales and lobstering. And it is, for some people, it is a delicate topic to approach because people have so many preconceived opinions on both sides. And you really have to think about this issue from everyone's perspective. And you have to consider all the information that the scientists have gathered. And you also have to consider everything that having these different laws and rules is putting the fishing population through. So when we talk to people, we have to be mindful that this is their job. This is what they do for a living, and we can't make it seem like we're gonna force them out of their traditions. But at the same time, we have to make sure that they're aware that this is something that is hurting the whales, and we're trying to come up with many solutions to help it, and with their cooperation, we'll have by far the most successful outcomes. And that's what's to add on to that.
You're right, Georgia. That's the toughest thing. And Amy can tell you, as a scientist, It's the toughest thing you guys are up against too, right? Is actually working with fishermen.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is because we don't know where every entanglement happens, there's some sense that it's not happening here, it's not happening there. So there's a bit of denial about accountability by some in the industry. And so we're trying to sort of educate to say it's happening everywhere. We just don't have the evidence to say it's happened here, or there. Because a lot of the entanglements result in only scars. There's no attached fishing gear to ever link back to a specific area. So it's been a tough road, but I'm hopeful that in the coming years, as regulations are going to be developed by 2028, hopefully we can have good conversations, gain some momentum.
I'm curious about the differences between U.S. and Canadian regulations and how they're approaching right whales. Obviously, many more right whales are spending the summer up in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, in addition to still being in the Gulf of Maine and Bay of Fundy. And just curious about the government regulations, how they differ.
Well, in Canada, we definitely know that there are more like rules, like going with like the right whales that like they have more, I think, weak links in their like they are needed to have more weak links in their fishing gear.
They have more ropeless.
Oh, ropeless, yeah, they have more ropeless, and I think they're just like better with like the like fishing, just like the whole like shipping and all that stuff too. Does anyone want to add on? Like,
so like a couple years ago in Canada, they had a huge rise in whale deaths because all of a sudden the whales started heading up northern, and there was one summer that they had it was a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of right whales who died up there, and Canada actually took action really quickly and were able to instigate a lot of laws that helped cut those numbers down dramatically the following summer. And they did that by having weaker lines and ropeless, and they have a bigger crab industry up there, so they had to make sure that they could like adapt those models to fit those traps too, which they did successfully. But Canada's recovery rates after that increase are actually really inspiring to look at, because they went from such a high death rate to extremely low in a relatively short amount of time, and that just proves that in the US we are capable of that as well.
And they still have a very robust lobster industry up there.
Yes.
A lot of the, and Amy can tell you that they're still getting entangled up there. And a lot of the, I'm losing my thought here. So a lot of it is due to closures. They actually make closures like they do here in the, down in Cape Cod. It's a closure right now. You cannot fish in Cape Cod because there are right whales there. And they've done a lot of closures up there too. But like the United States, Canada has a long way to go before they're actually lowering the risk enough, because it's still happening up there. Yeah. There's a question down back.
I too can tell. The closures in Massachusetts, can you fish with ropeless during that time, or is it just no fishing at all?
Yes to ropeless. You can fish with ropeless in those closures, which is another way to make sure, well, not to make sure, but like people who are worried about their livelihood, they could volunteer to test the fishing gear for free in many cases. They have a library where you can lend gear to test in Massachusetts. And with that gear, you are still allowed to fish in the closure. So people who would have to move their lines could either switch to ropeless, and that could, in theory, save them a lot of money.
Acadia and Aurora met one of the fishermen who's using ropeless.
We
down
did
there.
get to meet a Massachusetts fisher, and when we went down there, we got to see how his gear worked, and it was really cool.
He demonstrated it for us, like we were on a dock, like on his boat, and he like threw it in the water, and we saw like the bubbles rise up, the big air bag on top, and it was like really cool.
The ropeless, it really is cool to watch. It's inspiring to think about that. Like, hopefully within the next couple of years, that's something that will be more widespread, because it really is cool technology.
And that fisherman is working on selling his lobster as well safe, I think, right?
Do we have any idea how much of their gear is entangled? How many of the percent is lost, the ones that are ropeless?
I don't actually.
Versus say
So this is a
conventional, 'cause
question.
they lose a lot of gear anyhow
Yeah,
because of storms and everything else,
right.
seaweed. And,
Yeah, they say about 10% a year they lose.
yeah, is it 20% with ropeless or
Oh, I think they're expecting it to be less.
less?
Yeah,
Because down the bottom seems
Because-
like a lot of stuff would be caught down.
well, maybe, but you don't have the end lines, you know, in the column where all the energy is too, so I don't know. Amy, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I think they're losing less gear and they're able to relocate that gear sometimes because they have a tracker on it. So there was one guy who, his ropeless gear was towed by a dragger some number of miles, and he was able to relocate it because he was able to ping for it and relocate that gear on the seafloor. So I think it does result in less gear loss because the buoy and the line that can get pulled along by stormy weather is not happening when it's on the seafloor. So I think in general, it could be definitely reducing gear loss.
Anything else, folks?
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.